Good morning, everybody. And this is the voice of contrastive linguistics, broadcasting from the home of Mr. Nguyễn Ngọc Vũ. Welcome, all of you. Now, if you can hear me now, please type in the microphone. Just type in yes if you can hear me. Good. Everything seems to be working well. Right. Before we start the lesson today, I want to know where you are taking this session from. Is it from your home, from internet cafe, or from our school? So just type in the chat window. Okay. Internet shop, at home. At home again. Good. Seems that nearly all of you are doing this from your home. Now, for the purpose of later review, this session is being recorded, so don't worry if you miss something during the entire online workshop. Since this is our first experience with this online learning system, I just want to make sure that you know where to go about. If you look to the left side of the screen, you should see some symbols like a hand. Can you see a hand on the left side of your screen? Good. Now, whenever you have questions or you have points that you want to raise or you want to attract my attention, please click on the hand on the left side of the screen. And for the interest of clear audio setting, I would like to request all of you to mute your microphone, and please do it now. If I mute your microphones, it seems that you can't hear me. So everybody, please mute your own microphone. We have 1 minute to do this. Okay, so good morning everybody again. We have been spending some time preparing and setting up. If you cannot hear me on the microphone, the session is being recorded. With voice. And for those who are not able to use the microphone or cannot hear me, you can always watch the recordings later. Now I assume that you all can hear me. Okay, so these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas that contrastive linguistics can contribute to. We start with general linguistics. Now I have moved to slide 3. Can you see it now? Good. Now, contrastive linguistics has made several very important contributions to general linguistics. First thing first is add powers to the general linguistic principles by comparing and contrasting thousands of language pairs all over the world. Contrastive linguistics has proved the general linguistic principles that we have studied in previous courses are valid, and also the data collected from contrastive linguistic work help people to correct the Eurocentric views when studying non-European languages like Vietnamese. In previous sessions, we have already talked about the case of Vietnamese syntax, in which it's really hard for us to tell whether a certain part of the sentence is a verb or an adjective, like "coi đẹp," for example. Contrastive linguistics also reinforce and verify language universals via the data collected. Now, through the studies of contrastive linguistics, we know that all languages in the world have part of speech like noun, verbs, adjectives, pronouns. All languages in the world have different levels of languages like phonemes, and then sounds, syllables, morphemes, words, sentences. Now, within our discussion on the contribution of contrastive linguistics, it's important to mention two very famous linguists, Bloomfield and Professor Cao Xuân Hao. I just want to give you a quiz. Which area of linguistics is Bloomfield well known for? Now, please type your answer. Okay, I'm waiting for your responses. Is he famous for general linguistics, descriptive linguistics, or historical linguistics? Now, can somebody give me the answer? Okay, somebody saying that he's famous for structural linguistics. Well, that's a good guess, but that's not correct. Now, first, I need to remind you some of the very basic facts about Bloomfield. What is his nationality? Good. American. And Bloomfield is famous for his works describing native Indian American languages. So the answer that I expect should be descriptive linguistics. Okay, and Professor Carlson also says that it's important to draw out the universals of languages, but this can be done only after we have studied carefully all the specific aspects of individual languages. Now, the studies of contrastive linguistics also provide data for typological studies. It helps linguists to categorize languages better into categories like isolating languages, syntactic languages, polysynthetic languages. Another very interesting areas of study in general linguistics that very much relate to contrastive linguistics is the lexical gaps. Basically, in all languages, in all language pairs, I mean, there will be words or concepts that exist in one language, but all right, we are good to go. Let's keep our online sessions. This very interesting online sessions going with language transfer. I have switched to my 3G connections, and hopefully we will have better bandwidth. And seems to me that some of you can hear me now. If you cannot hear me, fine, because as I have already told, this session is being recorded via Camtasia, and it will be later uploaded to YouTube. Now, so let's go on with this. Another very big important contribution of contrastive linguistics to the language teachings is works on language transfer. Basically, language transfer can be understood as the influence of one language on the acquisition of the other. To make it simple, our mother tongue always has, to a certain extent, some influence on our learning and acquiring of another language. And I did mention this point one or twice in the previous sessions. Now, learners are different. Okay, so let's see some of the examples that the participants are posting in our chat windows for the negative transfers of Vietnamese on our learning of English. We can have pronunciation problems. I see this student Bùi Dương Phương Thảo mentioned the final sounds problem, and definitely that's a very good point. Yeah, Tạ Thị Thanh Huyền mentions the case of you know, prepositions in English and Vietnamese that are so different, and Vietnamese students would tend to translate this into my father is working outside or out of the field, for example. Later on, when we discuss about the differences in syntax and the semantics features of the two languages, we'll come back to this point. Good. So basically there are two types of transfers, a positive transfer and negative transfer. I think that for Vietnamese learners of languages, we do not enjoy a lot of positive transfer when we learn English, but we do have lots of positive transfer when we learn Chinese because of the lots of the similarities between the two languages. So a big thanks for the answers. We can now move on. Now, as for language transfers, there are two very different views on how we should deal with the issues, behaviorist, and this remind me of the behaviorism theories in language teaching that was very influential after World War II. Now, the behaviorist views in linguistics were very similar. These behaviorist linguists believe that learning another language means that you need to overcome the differences between the two languages. And they also believe that the major cause of errors in language learning are the negative influences of the mother tongues. Therefore, these negative influences should be prevented at all cost. Now, the behaviorists believe that all errors in language learning can be predicted by analyzing the differences between L1 and L2, and I think that all of you can agree with me that this is a little bit extremist. Probably some kinds of errors in language learning occurs due to many other factors other than negative transfers. Now, quite different from the behaviorist view, the natural approach believes that learning a new language or acquiring a new language is very similar to the way we learn and acquire our mother tongues. Therefore, there is no need to analyze language structures, and the differences between L1 and L2 should be ignored. Now, I have a quiz for all of the participants here. The natural approach. People believe that there is no need to analyze language structures in order to identify differences. Do you agree with this? Okay, so there seems to be a resounding disagreement with the natural approach belief. Now, I would like to raise another question. Which language teaching methods adopt the natural approach views. Yeah, think about your ELT1. Okay, so welcome back everybody, and I'm sorry for the technical hiccups during the first part of these lessons. Actually, we experienced some network problems and then server problems, and I decided to stop the Synchronous online learning in the middle of the lessons, and the later part will be done in the traditional mode. I mean, it will be done asynchronously. I will record my presentations on the slide and then re-upload to the network. So let's come back to the point that we were discussing previously about the sources of errors. We are now fully aware that errors come from negative transfer of our mother tongue to the language that we are learning. Language errors can also come from overgeneralizations, and lots of you have given me examples of overgeneralizations. A very good example of overgeneralization in the case of Vietnamese learner tend to speak on plurals with instead of the, so they tend to say pens, chairs, instead of saying pens, chairs. And another source of problem in language learning that can cause errors is the approximity system that were studied by Nemser, and another term for this is called the interlanguage. Basically, it means the two languages that share a lot of similarities can also cause confusions and difficulties for learners. For example, in this case, you see it's very easy for speakers of English to believe that these French words means actually in English, but the real meaning of actuellement in French is now or at present. Okay, so this is another source of errors for language learner, and it's called approximative system or interlanguage. Now, we should understand that when there are too many differences between two languages, that can cause a lot of difficulties for language learner, and in the early days of contrastive linguistics, especially after World War II, the contrastive linguistics researchers try to set up many levels of difficulties for language pairs, and they focus especially on phonetics and grammar. But this will only work for languages that are close together. For languages that are further apart, like the case of English and Vietnamese, you see that they not much use in comparing the grammatical structures, and this later leads to the failure or the crisis of contrastive linguistics, because of the too much emphasis on language forms. We are now aware that language differences do not always cause problems for language learners. For example, Vietnamese learners do not have problems learning English tenses. We do not have lots of difficulties learning some grammatical aspects that do not exist in our language. For example, the conditional sentences. For example, the substantive forms. Now, why language similarities, like the case of a proximity system that we discussed previously, I'm showing the list of the fonts friends in French here for you, can be the real source of troubles. Okay, let me say this again. These are important points for language teachers. With important similarity across languages, we do not need to spend too much time on teaching them. For example, the noun phrase structure in English and Chinese are quite similar. In English, we say a beautiful girl or an intelligent boy. And in Chinese, we use the same order. We say "y cửa mỹ lì cô nàng," right? Or "y cửa漂亮姑娘," and "y cửa khôn mình cô nàng." The adjective is before the noun. And in this case, these similarities only, facilitate language learning. We do not need to spend too much time teaching them. For similarity that are not really important, similarity that do not facilitate positive transfer, we do not need to spend time teaching them too. For example, in both English and Vietnamese, we have plural and singulars for nouns. In Vietnamese, we say một học sinh, nhiều học sinh, những học sinh, các học sinh. But the similarity in this grammar aspect do not have learners at all in language learning, and we do not need to spend time teaching this aspect. Now, for important differences, the kinds of differences across language pairs that can lead to negative transfers, it's important for us to focus our attention on these categories. For example, Vietnamese tones, English stress, final sounds, word order in English can be problems for Vietnamese language learner, and it's worthwhile for teacher to spend a lot of time drawing student attention to this area. For the unimportant differences that do not lead to negative transfers, we do not need to spend time teaching them too. Okay, and here are some the important notes for language teachers with important differences across language pairs um, um, though differences that can lead to negative transfers, it's important for us to focus our attention on these points and spend a lot of time drawing student attention to these problems. For example, the Vietnamese tones and the English tones, the English stress can be difficult for many Vietnamese language learners. Final sounds, countable and uncountable nouns, for example. Word order is also a problem for language learner at the early stage. For example, my baby, when she speaks English, she always tends to say, please give me the hand towel yellow, instead of saying give me the yellow hand towel, for example. For unimportant differences, differences that do not really lead to negative language transfer, we don't need to spend time explaining them too. For example, in English, we use question tags a lot, and in Vietnamese, it's quite rare for us to use question tags. And this difference does not cause any difficulties for Vietnamese language learners to learn question tags in English. Similarly, we do not use relative clauses a lot when we speak Vietnamese, but we do not have much difficulty, learning relative clause in English. It's also important to bear in mind that the difference can be important or not depending on specific language learners. Now please keep in mind that the differences can be important or unimportant depending on specific language learners. For example, the noun phrase order can be difficult for Vietnamese learning English, but it's not difficult for Chinese learning English because their noun phrase structure is basically similar. The tones of Chinese can be very difficult for Western language learner, but it is it's not important for Vietnamese learners. Now, our discussions on the similarities and differences across language pairs and how we should treat those differences are very important guidelines for cognitive contrastive linguistic applications. Now, for the contributions of contrastive linguistics and error analysis and an error diagnosis, we should be moderate to their contribution too. I agree that it's important to avoid extremist views, either overstate the role of contrastive linguistics like that of behaviorism, or complete refusions of contrastive linguistics like the viewpoint of the natural approach. Contrastive linguistic research results are especially useful for designing language courses for adults, since they tend to learn via experiences and comparing and contrasting. It's important to bear in mind too that contrastive linguistics is not the only one tool that can help us to diagnose all language errors. Language errors can also occur due to the age of the learners, due to the motivation of the learner, due to the psychologies, whether the learner is tensed, relaxed, you know, tired, excited, okay, at a time of learning. The language learning environment is also another factor that influence language learning and the kinds of errors that learners make. Sometimes we can also take the natural approach as an option in language teaching and learning. And I think through our discussions of the different teaching methods for English, like GTM, DM, CLT, and AOM, we all agree that each language teaching method has its own benefits, and it can be appropriate in a certain context. Now, during the last two slides of the presentation, I would like to talk just a little bit about the connection between conjunctive linguistics and error analysis. Why conjunctive linguistics focus on explaining the sources of language learning errors. Error analysis usually points out the kinds of errors that learners make without, checking to the sources of the problems. So between conjunctive linguistics and error analysis, there is a mutual connections in that error analysis proves whether the claims that conjunctive linguistics makes are right or wrong. And conjunctive linguistics, on the other hand, can predict the transfer errors and help make error analysis more efficient. Within the topics of the contribution of conjunctive linguistics, it's also worthwhile to mention the two schools of linguists that make very different contributions. While the Russian linguists, with the famous linguists on the screen, as you can see, mainly contribute to the theoretical studies. American linguists like Lado, Nico are more interested in studying about practical issues like language teachings and translations. So the American school are more on the applied conjunctive linguistics side, while Russian linguists are on the theoretical conjunctive linguistics. However, there is, a mutual, very strong connection between these two schools of languages. Obviously, the apply conjunctive linguistic outcomes will not be possible without foundational studies from theoretical linguistics. Okay, so this is the end of our online learning sessions, and I'm very happy to see quite a lot of you spending time participating in the learning activities, participating in the online discussions, despite the technical hiccups. Now I will make some editings to our video recordings and upload to the system. Next time I will use a different platform. It seems that the big blue button that we have been using this morning is not really effective in handling a lot of users joining the conference at the same time. And these are several discussion questions for you to think about before we stop. For the homework, I want you to join the discussion forum and talks about the common language errors that Vietnamese learners tend to make. And the last activities that you need to finish is the reflection activities. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for your participation. See you again soon.